Okay, welcome back, Silver Ball channel subscribers. If you don't know who this is a picture of, I suggest you go back to school. It's a picture of JFK, John F. Kennedy. I'm not from the US, and even I know who he is. What would someone like JFK Kennedy do in the current situation where we have Iran with nuclear weapons? All right. The threat is, well, where it's believed Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon. Iran is anywhere, they say, from 5 to 10 years from getting a nuclear weapon. But let's say they've got one now, just hypothetically. And the government has said they want to wipe out Israel. And you get this fanatical pro-Israeli lobby in America. All right. As I said before, I'm neither pro or against Israel. I'm quite sure they can defend themselves. They've proven time and time again in various wars that they're more than capable of defending their country. They're nuclear armed themselves, even though it's against the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. It's well known they've got nuclear weapons, and being such a small country, yeah, it'd probably only take 3, maybe 5 nukes to wipe Israel completely off the face of the earth and kill off every Israeli citizen. And I won't call them Jews or whatever, because not every Israeli citizen is a Jew. Judaism is a religion, not a race. People who crap on about Jews being a race is just rubbish. As I've said before, both my wife and I have Jewish ancestors. They don't make up the bulk of our ancestry, but they're there, as they are probably in just about every person. If you go back far enough in your genealogy, you're going to find a Jewish person. But these people who crap on Judaism as a race and not a religion, they fail to understand the truth about the matter. And not all Jews are Zionists. There are many Jews who are actually anti-Zionists. Zionism believes there should be a nation for Jews created in the Promised Land. And Zionism, probably in its earliest form, was in fact Moses taking the people back to the Promised Land. And I don't have a problem with Zionism like that. But after Israel, or Judea, was punished for repeatedly breaking the covenant it had with God, the promise went out unto the Gentiles, basically. There was going to be no more chosen nation. So to all those conservative American Christians who support Israel, I really believe you're doing the opposite of what God wants. If you look at the prophecies of the Old Testament, that Zionism isn't God's will. His will was for the gospel to go into all the world. Why would you support a religion, Judaism, which denies the Messiah, Jesus Christ? I can't understand how you can claim to be a Christian and support that. Your faith is on very shaky grounds. But anyhow, that's a theological issue. What I wanted to talk here about with JFK is what would have he done in this situation where we have Iran in our hypothetical situation is currently armed with nukes. Would he suggest we invade the nation? And I don't believe he would. Let's say Iran had the 5 nukes and could wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and they say Israel should be wiped off. Would they do it? And I believe, no, they wouldn't. There's a number of reasons why they wouldn't. Number one, because it'd kill off a whole bunch of Palestinians as well. You couldn't nuke Tel Aviv without, radiation killing off all the nearby Palestinians. You'd cause nuclear pollution to go into Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. Could even go down to Egypt, depending which way the winds were blowing. And even some of it would come back on Iran. It's just not a sensible option. It's a crazy option to use nuclear weapons against Israel. Nuclear weapons aren't surgical in that way. They're designed for mass destruction, and that's what you get. The radiation is indiscriminatory. It can go wherever. So it's just crazy. And to think that Israel's subs and other things wouldn't do a complete retaliatory strike, and they wouldn't wipe Iran off the face of the map. I would think if we had a decent American president at the moment, if Obama was the new JFK like he tried to crap on in his thing, he would probably say something like this. Now let me give this a go. I'm going to have to play it. It may reverb. Let's have a listen.
Shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
Okay, so that's how JFK approached the Cuban Missile Crisis. Simply said that should one, he put a blockade in, but that's a separate issue. But he made it clear that should a nuclear missile leave that island, it would automatically be assumed that it was an attack on the United States, and it wouldn't result in an attack on Cuba. It would result on an attack on Russia itself, a full nuclear holocaust. And really, that's all the US president has to say now, is that if Iran were to nuke Israel, the US would consider it an attack on US soil, and the US would nuke Iran, and it could wipe off every single Persian citizen off the face of the earth, basically, in Iran quite easily, many times over, with its nuclear stockpile. That would be the more sensible thing to say. Should any nuclear missile, any nuclear product leave Iran, should some terrorist walk up to some city with a suitcase nuke and blow it up, that the US would consider it an attack against the US itself and nuke Iran off the face of the planet. I don't believe the Iranians want nuclear weapons to be attacking other nations. They want them to guarantee that the US won't attack them. It's a defensive weapon. It's not a attacking weapon. In fact, McNamara claimed nukes were a waste of time. He was quite a logical person. He just said nukes have no value whatsoever, because you're never going to use them. You spend all this money for a weapon you're never going to use. It's it's a bit pointless. It's like having a shotgun shell without a shotgun, or having a shotgun without any ammunition. I mean, they're only any good if the two go together. You're never going to use a nuclear weapon, so what's the point of having it? There was the doctrine of MAD, mutually assured destruction, and basically that's the doctrine that'd have to fall back on Iran. Should you ever use nuclear weapons, or should any terrorist use nuclear weapons, we're going to wipe you off the face of the planet. And on top of that, hell, I'd even, and call me an extremist, I'd say to all Muslims, should you use nuclear weapons at any stage, We in the West will nuke Mecca. Alright? We will wipe it off the face of the earth. And you won't be able to go on your Hajj, your pilgrimage. See, one of the fundamental things of the Islamic religion is you should at least once in your lifetime go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Which would be impossible if you nuked it off the face of the planet and left it so radioactive that anyone who went there instantly died. Though there are some Islamic prophecies where it's suggested that Mecca is in fact, that is Mecca's ultimate destination. That's what's going to happen to it one day. I'm not sure whether that's mainstream Islamic religion or whether that's a prophecy in some more radical group. If anyone knows, by all means, put your comments in the field below. So, rather than going to a war with Iran, I think Ron Paul's got it absolutely right. Engage in diplomacy. If Iran no longer feels threatened by the US wanting to change its government like it did in 1953, it's not going to install another Shah of Iran and that, then the Iranians would see a lot less need to have nuclear weapons. And it's a very dangerous game because, as I've said before, I don't think China and Russia will just stand by and let Iran become part of this Middle East project the New World Order buffs have got going. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think this is the correct approach, to look back to the past, see how JFK approached the situation, do it the same? I doubt Obama could have this. He just isn't the same caliber of person, and that has nothing to do with his race or anything like that, which is difficult to determine anyhow because he's half white, he's half black. So, what is his race? Some say he's the first black president, but he is and he isn't. His mum's whiter than I am, so who knows? It's irrelevant. The simple fact of the matter is Obama is not of the caliber of John F. Kennedy, because John F. Kennedy actually believed what he said to the point where he was assassinated, whereas I don't think Obama believes anything he says. And that's where, on the international stage, it's so important. Nikita Khrushchev, when he was negotiating with JFK, knew he was dealing with someone who held certain principles to be hugely important. He was a person who believed in the US Constitution. He believed in laws. Because he was a man of principle, Khrushchev knew that if he said he was going to take the nukes out of Turkey, which was the deal to get the nukes out of Cuba, that his word alone would be enough that it would be done. And although it wasn't done instantly, because that was part of the deal, it was done quietly a couple months later. So Khrushchev knew Kennedy was a man who he could trust. Which world leader would believe that Obama is a man you can trust? The guy's broken every promise he's ever made. This is what the world we're living in. It's absolutely insane. As for Ahmadinejad, or whatever his name is, the Iranian leader, the guy's a little more than a tin pot dictator. I don't think he has the respect of the vast majority of his own people. And I don't believe the vast majority of Iranians want to, certainly don't want to destroy the US. I'm not quite sure what their feelings are on Israel, but I don't think they want to nuke it off the face of the earth. That's just stupid rhetoric. And the Iranians would know, even if they did that, even if America did nothing, Israel still has in its capability the ability to nuke Iran off the face of the earth. So, it's just stupid. I forget what the last count of Israeli nuclear weapons was, but it's something between 60 and 100 warheads, which is more than enough to make Iran unlivable for the next 100,000 years. As for them wanting it for peaceful nuclear power purposes, well, why don't they press then for thorium? It can't be used for nuclear weapons, and thorium seems to be a lot better way of creating nuclear power. It's slightly more expensive, but I think in real terms, considering Fukushima and the disaster that's happened there, thorium, which won't support a chain reaction if things go to crap like an earthquake, and there's been earthquakes in Iran, is a much more sensible nuclear option. Not good for Australia. We produce heaps of uranium in this country. It's not good for us, but that's irrelevant. It's what's good for the whole world, and thorium is a much better use for nuclear power. And if you haven't looked into that, have a read about thorium nuclear reactors over uranium or plutonium nuclear reactors. That's all the US has to do. So, well, look, we'll share technology with you, but it'll be thorium nuclear reactors that we will help you build, and that'll help your power problems. Wouldn't that be a more constructive way to solve the problems of Iran? That's my thoughts on the Iran crisis and how JFK would solve it. Silver Bull Channel signing out.